This sled dog is preparing to rescue a research station doctor who has fallen into an ice hole, but every second on the ice is extremely dangerous. However, the dog trusts that its owner can pull it back at any moment. As it approaches the man, the dog carefully extends the rope and successfully loops it around the doctor. After Maya calms the doctor's emotions, she returns to her owner's side. Tony then quickly ties the rope to the sled team and shouts at the dogs to pull together with all their strength. Finally, with the combined effort of one person and 8 dogs, the doctor is pulled out of the ice pit. But Tony is nearly exhausted, and worse still, a blizzard is about to hit. Tony immediately secures the doctor to the sled. As the blizzard intensifies, Tony moves the lead dog Maya to the front row, placing all his hope on her. Maya seems to understand her owner's intention. She shakes herself and prepares to give it her all. Tony then shouts loudly, "Go, Maya!" Maya leads the team at full speed toward the camp, but the wind and snow are too fierce, and Tony can't hold on, falling unconscious. Seeing this, Maya runs even faster. At this moment, the 8 dogs seem to be racing against death itself. Fortunately, the dogs prevail. The sled team reaches the camp before nightfall. Teammates help the 2 men into the building, while the dogs wait anxiously outside. However, their condition is not optimistic. Tony's fingers are frostbitten and showing signs of necrosis, while the doctor has fallen into a complete coma. He must be transferred to the city for treatment. But due to limited space on the plane, the dogs have to be left behind. Tony had planned to take the next flight with the dogs, but his fingers can't wait any longer. Tony's ex-girlfriend Lisa promises him she'll come back to rescue the dogs. The man reluctantly agrees, realizing the humans don't plan to take them. The dog Max breaks free from his chain and approaches his owner, wanting to leave together. But Max is fitted with a muzzle again. To prevent the dogs from breaking free, each one is tied even tighter. Finally, Tony comes to Maya and comforts the dogs, saying they'll be back soon to get them. Reluctantly, Tony boards the plane, watching the plane gradually disappear. The dogs all become restless and anxious. They don't know what they did wrong for their owner to abandon them. Tony's heart is heavy too. He thinks to himself, "Wait for me, dogs. I'll be back soon to get you." Then Tony falls into a deep sleep. But when Tony wakes up again, 3 days have passed. He immediately asks about the dog's condition. Seeing his colleague's helpless expression, Tony instantly realizes something is wrong. He finds Lisa and asks what happened. Lisa says the flight team has canceled the Antarctic mission, and the earliest they can go is next spring. Tony refuses to believe it, and storms into the command center. When he learns that 8 dogs haven't been rescued, the commander shows complete disdain, because in 2 days Antarctica will face a storm rare even in 2 years. No pilot would be foolish enough to risk their life to save those 8 dogs. Tony stands frozen, not knowing what to do. He can't imagine how the dogs will survive the winter in that freezing place. 2 days later, the blizzard arrives. This is the dogs' 4th day of surviving on their own. They all obediently curl up in place, waiting for their owner to return. But days pass without any sign of their owner. The dogs are starving. Suddenly, Max notices a tern that has landed on the cable. Its wings are frozen stiff and it can't fly. Max excitedly wakes his companions, then leaps with all his might and breaks free from the rope, charging toward the tern. His hungry companions all break free and run toward the tern. But the leader Maya hasn't left yet, because she needs to look after the elderly Truman. Maya wants to untie his rope, but Truman refuses to cooperate. Truman wants to stay here quietly, unwilling to be a burden to the team anymore. Maya keeps licking Truman's fur in a final farewell, then silently leaves. On the 15th day, Truman dies. But the younger dogs haven't given up. They arrive at a hillside and unexpectedly discover a flock of terns, which excites Max greatly. But Max's barking scares the terns away. Fortunately, they don't fly far. Max nearly caused trouble. Maya, who arrives just then, immediately assigns tasks. She has all the dogs sneak to the opposite side to ambush, leaving only young Max in place to reflect and telling him to learn how to hunt properly. After Maya leaves, Max lies on the ground, clearly somewhat defiant. Seeing that the companions on the opposite side are in position, Maya slowly crouches down and crawls forward. When she reaches hunting range, Maya gives the command, and the dogs pounce on the terns. Maya successfully drives the terns in the opposite direction, where the ambushing companions appear in time and successfully catch several before they fly away. Max, who witnessed the entire process, can't help but admire the spectacle. Although all the dogs are hungry, after catching food, they don't eat but place it in front of Maya, waiting for her to distribute it. Seeing that only he didn't get any food, Max stands bewildered in the cold wind. He tries to mooch some food from his companion, but is scared off by the fierce expression. Finally, Max gets a full meal from another companion. Over the next 50 days, the dogs search for food during the day and huddle together for warmth at night. The dogs witness the aurora, but still haven't seen their owner. All the dogs are mesmerized by this scene. As the aurora gradually fades, the playful Max and several dogs chase after it. Maya calls from behind, telling them to be careful, but the dogs are all captivated by the brilliant colors and pay no attention to the danger beneath their feet. Suddenly, one dog falls down the mountain. Hearing a scream, Maya realizes the danger and quickly runs down the mountain to check. Kevin has broken his leg and lies dying on the ground. In this frozen wasteland, without human help, Kevin can only wait for death. The dogs lie on Kevin to keep him warm, hoping he'll survive. But the wind and snow intensify, and the dogs' bodies are soon buried. The next day, when the dogs wake up, Kevin has left them. Kevin's brother tries to wake him, but Kevin's body has already frozen. Maya takes heavy steps and is the first to leave, because she must be responsible for the living brothers. The dogs leave one after another. Finally, even Kevin's brother leaves. But Max stands frozen in place. Only after all his companions have left does Max dare approach Kevin. Max feels it was his playfulness yesterday that killed Kevin, so he snuggles next to Kevin and refuses to leave. When all the dogs gather, Maya realizes Max hasn't caught up. After who knows how long, as the wind blows harder, Max finally gets up to leave. But his companions are nowhere to be seen. Max realizes he's been left behind. On the other side, Tony hasn't forgotten his promise. Over these months, he has visited the relevant departments countless times, only to be put off by staff with various excuses. So Tony seeks help from the doctor, but the doctor says that after all these months, the dogs couldn't possibly still be alive. The doctor even urges Tony to forget about it all. Tony asks the doctor in return, "Can you really forget?" Tony suspects the dogs are probably already gone, but every time he forces himself to forget them, they appear in various corners. No one dares believe the dogs are still alive. This is their 133rd day abandoned in Antarctica. Today the dogs have found a supply station. They feast inside, and after eating their fill, they rest here, enjoying this rare comfort. However, the leader Maya gazes outside the door. She's worried about Max's safety. Meanwhile, Max returned to the base only to find his companions gone. He began his wandering life in Antarctica. One day, Max was pleasantly surprised to discover a whale carcass on the ice. Starving, Max was about to eat when he noticed that all the meat on the whale's surface had been picked clean. Max moved forward to check other parts of the whale, but suddenly a sea lion burst out from the whale's belly, frightening Max into fleeing immediately. However, Max had been starving for days and felt reluctant to give up. Just then, Max heard a dog bark from the mountaintop. Looking up, he saw his brothers had arrived. Encouraged by his companions, Max was no longer afraid. After exchanging glances with Maya, who gave him a signal, Max charged at the sea lion. Under his companions' watchful eyes, Max tore off a piece of meat right in front of the sea lion. This was undoubtedly a provocation. The sea lion watched Max escape, then angrily dove into the water and rapidly pursued him. Meanwhile, Max's companions arrived at the whale carcass and began eating. After chasing for a while, the sea lion suddenly realized it had been tricked and quickly returned. It soon reached the whale, and by the time Max noticed, it was too late. The sea lion viciously bit down on Maya's hind leg. The dogs were so frightened they jumped to higher ground. Only Max, fearless of danger, charged at the sea lion. Max leaped onto the sea lion's back and fiercely bit back. The other dogs then sprang into action, attacking the sea lion together. Realizing the situation had turned against it, the sea lion jumped into the water and fled. The dogs wagged their tails, celebrating their victory. Only Maya lay on the ground, unable to stand. Her hind leg was too severely injured. Not wanting to sadden her teammates, Maya endured the pain and stood up. Under the dogs' watchful eyes, Maya slowly walked to the whale carcass, and only then did the other dogs approach and devour the meat. This was the fullest they had eaten in 6 months. But when the dogs returned to the base, Maya could no longer hold on and collapsed in pain. Her companions all stayed with her, keeping watch through wind and rain. During this time, Max led the companions to find food, but whatever Max found, he would place before Maya, waiting for her to redistribute it. However, Maya pushed the food back to Max. Maya's gesture meant that from that day forward, Max would be the new leader. The companions also placed their food before Max and stood in a row, waiting for Max to redistribute it. Everyone had witnessed Max's progress over these months and was willing to follow his arrangements. Meanwhile, having found the first Martian meteorite in Antarctica, the doctor was giving a speech at an awards ceremony. He thanked his family, his team, and the foundation that supported him, but failed to mention mention the dogs that had saved his life. Listening to the applause around him, Tony felt it was deeply ironic. Tony had come to say goodbye to the doctor. Tony couldn't let go of those 8 dogs. Whether they were dead or alive, Tony had to return to Antarctica to check on them. The doctor only wished Tony a safe journey before returning to people's hollow praise. When he got home, the doctor discovered a drawing on his son's bedside table. In people's eyes, Dad was their hero, but his hero was the 8 dogs that had saved his father. The doctor realized that his once kind and brave heart seemed to have been clouded by worldly fame and reputation. However, Tony's plan to return to Antarctica wasn't going smooth. In the depths of winter, no fishermen at the dock were willing to lend him a boat. Just then, a waiter brought over a beer, saying it was from a lady at the bar. The man turned to see all his former companions there. It turned out this was all arranged by the doctor. Last night, he had decided to bring back those 8 true heroes. With the doctor's help, they rented an icebreaker and successfully reached the research station closest to Antarctica. Then, driving a snow vehicle, they finally arrived on the 175th day of the dog's ordeal. But after getting out, no dogs came to greet them. Everyone felt heavy-hearted. Tony looked at the entire chain buried under snow and fell silent. He pulled hard on the chain, but couldn't budge it. Understanding what he was about to see, Tony endured the pain and cleared away the snow above. Then Tony saw a dog's ear. Looking at the body on the ground, Tony felt deeply guilty. After a long moment, Tony mentally prepared himself and reached further down, only to discover with delight that the second chain was broken. This meant the dog might still be alive. Tony instantly realized something and pulled up all the chains. Tony and his companions were shocked. The remaining dogs had broken free from their chains and escaped. Suddenly, several dog barks came from beyond the hill. The dogs had heard the sounds and come. No one could believe the dogs were still alive. In that moment, the dogs showed no resentment at all. Even though humans had abandoned them, when they reunited, they still threw themselves at the humans without hesitation. Looking at the familiar faces of the dogs, Tony was overjoyed, but he noticed Maya and Kevin were missing. So Tony looked toward the hill, hoping for one more surprise. But after waiting a long time, he saw no sign of them. The man realized he had been greedy. He should be happy that these 5 were still alive. But just as the team was preparing to leave, Max refused to go no matter what. Then Max ran toward the hill, and Tony immediately followed. It turned out Maya was lying there weakly. Tony came to Maya's side, and looking at her frozen body, shed tears of guilt. Tony kept saying sorry to Maya, as if hearing her master's voice. Maya's eyes suddenly moved. Tony reached out and touched her, delighted to discover that Maya was still alive. This is a true story, based on the real experiences of a Japanese Antarctic expedition team in 1957. However, reality was far more brutal than the movie. Of the 15 dogs left behind, only 8 managed to break free from their chains, and in the end, only 2 survived.